So I was with a customer the other day, and they were telling me how sustainability is now an agenda item on their board. Is that the same with Bytes?
Absolutely. Yeah, we have it integral to our board. So we've actually created an ESG committee this year in June. They set up, have had their first meeting, and so it really brings that kind of control and oversight from the board.
Okay.
It means it gets a little bit more integrated into everything that the company does. So I can understand why the customer's done that.
So Bytes are really investing then in understanding around sustainability across all of their vendors. How are you dealing with that? How are you monitoring and managing that?
So a lot of it, I mean, there's a lot of reasons why sustainability is important to a business, and there's a lot of things that come into it. But we've been looking at the regulations recently, which have changed quite a lot. It's always an evolving landscape. It's actually one of our principal risks at Bytes of keeping up with regulations. And one of them that's changed quite significantly is ESOS. So it's a UK regulation.
Another acronym.
Another acronym, I'm sorry, I know. Energy Savings and Opportunity Scheme, if you need to know that.
Okay.
But ESOS is a little bit easier to say.
Yeah.
But it applies to quite a lot of companies in the UK. And it looks at energy audits. So it does energy audits of your buildings. It looks at business travel as well, and that's included in there. Previously, it's been kind of a 4-year, you do an energy audit, you submit it to the government, and that's kind of it. Whereas now they've asked for action plans. So we need to actually put a bit more into it and have this plan that was submitted in December, and you need to report against that and show progress, ideally, each year. So it's been kind of important for us to then look at what are we doing, how are we going to achieve that, to actually meet the targets and goals that we've set ourselves as well.
Okay, so the government are actually bringing in these new regulations then, which mean that they've got to do this reporting.
Exactly, yeah.
And that'll impact all of the Bytes customers as well, right? Not obviously
Absolutely.
just you as a supplier.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is UK, so if the companies are based in the UK or they've got quite a significant part in the UK, then they will have to do this part. So it's there's penalties if you don't, but more of it is probably around reputational risk. And actually, it kind of blends into what a lot of companies will be doing anyway in terms of reporting their emissions, but now actually looking at how are they going to meet reduction targets.
Yeah, and we're seeing more and more customers, obviously, if you don't have a sustainability goal or a plan in place, then actually they don't want to work with you as well, right? So obviously I can see why Bytes take it so seriously across the piece. And, how are you starting to see any tooling or AI or IoT that you're driving within the business?
At Bytes, we've kind of looked at it from just trying to get our emissions first. So we're kind of baselining it. A lot of it's using kind of more old tech, I suppose, as to what we've got available. And I think that's probably the case for a lot of companies at the moment as to how to get that information. But I think as we develop and as tools develop, then it's something we'll definitely be looking at, because as easy as you can make this and actually having that live action. So recently we've done a refurb at Bytes, and we've put in, I mean, it's quite a simple thing, but just sensors on taps. So when we refurbed it, we did that. It's meant to reduce water usage by about 50 to 75%, which is great, because all that resource efficiency is brilliant, but we don't actually know if that's going to save that or not without our kind of annual checks. So if we had some way of doing that on a more frequent basis, it would be quite useful to then see those initiatives that you do enact, do they actually meet what you're expecting? Because they might go beyond.
Yeah, and I mean, we're working with customers at the moment where, we're putting in IoT sensors around air quality control, for instance, so adjusting the temperature within a meeting room automatically, and looking at lighting saving as well, but also monitoring around all of their air quality, around water sensors, around fire sensors, all this kind of stuff, all into central dashboards. ESG reporting, if you like, is obviously becoming more important. So how are Bytes doing ESG reporting at the minute? Is that manual at the moment?
It is quite, quite manually, to be honest. We work with a third party, so they'd have that assurance level on our data. But a lot of it comes from the systems we've currently got. There's different systems that come in. There's actually quite a lot of assumptions that come into some of this data as well. So it'd be great to have that kind of technology that then has, and even to make smarter decisions, because I'm guessing once you've got that information, even things like comfort at work. So you could have zones, I guess, where you've got people who prefer to be in a cooler environment, or people prefer it to be warmer, because you've always got those people who are sat there in cardigans and other people who are in like the short sleeves, because they tolerate different temperatures. I'm guessing you could kind of work on that and actually make it a more comfortable environment.
Yeah, I prefer it to be Arctic for me. So, but I mean, so Bytes are really going on that journey as well, and that's where a lot of the customers are obviously going on. And it'd be fantastic to see that, next year is seeing where that technology is driving. And AI, obviously, from a data-driven conversation. So you've already said collecting all this data. How important is data to you guys, and how that must be feeding into your board conversations?
Absolutely. I mean, data's integral. So once we've got our emissions set, which we've done our scope 1, 2 and 3 this last couple of years, which is fantastic, we've got our targets, but we need to measure against those. And if we don't, our board are going to be asking, our ESG committee, investors, they're all going to be asking, are we there? How are we reaching that? And just kind of continuing on that journey to show that progress that we're trying to make.
Do you push that down to your suppliers as well? So, all of your suppliers that's obviously supplying into you and going into your customers, do you follow that all the way through? We used to do it when I was at my previous location, we used to do cradle to grave around food. So understanding where the food was grown, we used to do IoT monitoring around heat and everything else, but understanding that whole supplier chain. Is that exactly what you do as well?
That is exactly it, yeah. So sustainability now is all about that value chain. So you're looking at what are your suppliers doing, asking them questions, getting all that information, to what you're doing, to then how your customers are using your products as well. So all of it comes into that kind of measurement and those frameworks to do that. And I think the more we have that technology to take some of the burden away from doing it all manually, and to take some of the risk away, because quite frankly, if you're doing it manually, there's going to be mistakes, there's going to be data missing. So the more you can kind of automate that, the better that's going to be for people, and for translating that to other businesses as well within that value chain.
Cool, thank you very much. And I think, for me, Bytes can offer so much, because you're going on that journey. We're learning an awful lot around that. If we want to work with the customers around this side of things, they can contact us and speak with you around how we're learning, but also how we're going to go and look at automation, orchestration around building that in for ESG in the future.
Absolutely. So I think the kind of AI is going to be a big thing in the future. That's something we want to have a conversation around, because it's going to use a lot more energy, quite frankly. It's a bit of an elephant in the room in that case. But we can also use it to then make sure our data is better, to actually drive those sustainability issues, and it should offset quite a lot of the emissions that it's creating. So I think that's a really good point for the future, to be able to do that.
You chucked in the grenade there, didn't
I did,
you?
didn't I?
Everybody's talking about AI and how great it's going to be,
Which
and you just it's going to be more energy.
But there is that side of it. We have to be realistic. There is that side. And actually, at the moment, people's emissions are going up, but the more we move to renewable electricity, the more those data centres will be sustainable. So there's a lot that I know our partners and vendors are doing to reduce emissions. So I think it'll easily net off as being a positive.
There's got to be a balancing act, right?
Absolutely.